Today I'm going to talk about employment, being discriminated and fighting back. As I applied for the post of library assistant in a university, in the university's prestigious library. I was interviewed by the head of Library Information Services, library chairperson, managerial rep in the University Human Resources Department. My interview lasted 3/4 of an hour, where I answered every question as honestly as I could. Whereupon the chairperson of the library commented that my curriculum vitae qualifications were not only excellent, but very relevant to the post, and complimented me on my comprehensive and background knowledge of the library due adjustment system and related matters. It is important to note at the time, of course, of the interview, I disclosed in a tentative way that I lived with mental illness, moderating my tone and alluding that I had recovered to the fullest extent. At the end of my first working year, I was invited by the head of Library Information Services with all the other library assistants to discuss the renewal of all our contracts for the next year. In the presence of this group, the head of Library Information Services stated that my contract was being renewed and that I would be assigned to the library floor for the new term. I would like to note that 2 weeks later, I phoned the head of Library Information Services regarding a contract renewal query, and she commented. You know, it's common that contracts may not be renewed. The chairperson then informed me that my contract would not be renewed because of a report sent in by the head of Library Information Services. I contacted the Field Information Officer and completed 2 forms to ascertain why my contract was not being renewed and the reasons why. 3 weeks later, I received 2 FOI replies from the library head, this time stating that there was no such report generated by the head of Library Information Services about me, and the reason my contract was not being renewed was because the library did not require my skills at this point. In mid-August, after the library chair returned from his holidays, I met him and explained the process thus far. He then proceeded to tell me that I must have picked up himself wrong and denied that he ever said that there was a report, and the reason why my contract was not being renewed was because of budgetary cutbacks. Talking informally to my library manager in September of that year, I was informed that there were 3 vacancies for new library assistant posts, which of course took me by complete shock and surprise. The library line manager then said there would be adverts in the newspapers for these positions towards the end of September. Following this, I contacted the head of the library on the phone regarding the new situation. The head of the library was extremely evasive, but then managed to tell me that a number of nameless people contacted him, or her, I should say at this stage, had actually consulted him, questioned my suitability for the job, which the library head was neither willing to explain, elaborate, nor even clarify. I was incredulous listening to this, considering that I had a letter from the head of the library stating there was no requirement for my skills at this point, and yet the library is now in the process of advertising for 3 new positions over my head. So the head of the library also, in the course of that phone communication, could not recall that my library line manager informed him that I was one of the best library workers she ever had, all her long years working in UCC. And I said, look, I will go to the media about this. And after the representations from the human resources person and his subsequent representation, all the information that I put together that awful summer, I was duly reinstated. That's it.